Well, hello and welcome to another episode of More Perfect Marketing. It's David Baer here, and today we're going to talk about, here's a phrase that I find often comes out of my mouth. My partner says this quite a bit, and other marketers who we've trained are now learning the importance of the following phrase. And here's what it is. We're often approached by businesses who have the expectation that they just need to run more ads and get more leads so that they can get people either showing up on their website, filling out forms, or get that phone ringing, or get people to their webinars, or coming in their office, or whatever the first step of that new relationship might be. And we come and we look at their situation. We might go through a needs assessment of where they are in their business, and we uncover something that prompts us to say, you don't have a leads problem. You have a leads management problem. And that is what we're going to dig into today with a lead generation specialist who observes this as well. His name is Alex Oliveira, and he is the owner of Predict, which is a firm that has worked with over 3,000 clients, helping with both lead generation as well as helping them figure out what to do with those leads effectively to bring in the revenue that they want and deserve. Alex, welcome.
David, thanks for having me on the podcast. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So, okay, I painted this picture, right? I said, you don't have a leads problem. You have a leads management problem. And this is something that I think we've observed over and over in our business. And I'm curious how you started to recognize this as an issue in working with clients.
Yeah, I mean, this was early on, I'd say 2011, when I had been in business for a few years and really doing the massive volumes of traffic that we had a publisher network and doing affiliate marketing. I got to observe that, look, we generate a lot of leads. A certain amount of them are no good, maybe 5, 10, 15%. They get scrubbed out for different reasons and filtered out. And then assuming you're having a good targeted, campaign, you're going to end up with about 85% that you can work with. Then you start to put them through different, flows of that journey. And whether it's a call center, like, for example, we used to work with a huge life insurance call center in Bellevue, Washington. So I got to observe from the time that we were generating the leads to watch a call center with 800 agents pick up the phone and follow up. And then after that follow up, then they would start sort of an email automation campaign, mail, you name it, right? And kind of tie it all in together and started to see like, okay, great. They closed 5, 6, 7%. But I'm really curious as to why all these other hot leads that were the right people had the right needs. And in this case, e-coverage represented a lot of different carriers. So it wasn't like they were just one carrier. They represented MetLife and all these other life insurance carriers. So they had a good product that was more valuable than the competitors. But why weren't their agents, who were really sharp people? They weren't like a call center salesperson. These were like really good, well-trained people. Why couldn't they close them? And that was like the first time that in the digital marketing space, I started to see that, wait a minute, the problem isn't so much leads. And it reminds me of that movie back in the 80s or 90s. It's the one with Alec Baldwin where he says
Glengarry Glen Ross, based on the David Mamet play.
Yeah, that's right. And so, it's not that you need more leads. I mean, you just need to go do it a little different. And every time since then, since 2011, that I've had the opportunity to work with companies, before we do a needs assessment, before we do anything else, I just want to hear how you handle leads and basically look at that map and how it goes. And again, we know that there's no one size fits all funnel. I even hate the word funnel and the way we paint it that way, because it's not a funnel. It's kind of all over the place for different, right, personas. And so I like to do that. Just understand, secret shop for the business and understand how they put you through that customer experience and journey. And then kind of pick at, look, here's where you're leaving money on the table. Here's where you might close more deals. And oftentimes, as is the case, I'm sure you know, David, and many who are listening here, there's money to be found. There's customers to be found just by fine tuning that process, because you got to do that before you go spend more money on leads or marketing, right?
Oh, totally. And I love the fact that this is where you're starting the conversation, because it's a very different conversation from the one that many lead generation companies tend to have, right? There's, if I were to think back to some of the lead gen service providers that I've looked at, they'll ask about numbers. How many do you want? How many calls would you like to receive in this period of time? Or how many new email subscribers are you looking for? Great. Here's how much that's going to cost. But they are not asking the important question that you've just raised here, which is, what are you doing with these people once they come to you, and how are you maximizing the opportunity to get them to no longer be a lead, but be somebody who has a desire or opportunity to actually be someone you can serve?
Yeah, and it always has to be a dynamic approach, right? What I mean by that is that recently I had to replace our air conditioner because we're in Florida, so air conditioners last maybe 10 years. And so I started on that path with my wife and kids, actually, because I was telling you, David, we homeschool our kids, and so this was going to be a project for school. We're going to look for the service providers, we're going to budget, we're going to interview them, we're going to do the whole thing, how to search for the fake websites, the marketplaces versus the actual service providers,
Mhm.
look at the reviews. We did all of that. We came up with eight different companies that we wanted to work with. And we called all eight, we emailed all eight, we messaged and chatted them. I mean, we did everything that you would do. And we ended up with three coming out. And the other five didn't come out because they made so many mistakes along the way, just in the communication level. And by the way, some of those were ads that came up on Google. Others were referrals. Others that we looked up on social networks. So we kind of did a mixed bag, but every single company made a series of mistakes that never even got them to my door. And then once the three that got to my door got here, it was down to one because the other two just made even more mistakes at the customer experience sort of phase.
Yeah.
And that was fine. So we were left with one, and that one seemed to do like everything right.
So I'm curious, by the way, this is a great project for family that's doing homeschooling. So I
Yeah.
love the fact that you've taken something that's very practical and tangible and applied it to a learning situation. And so let's extend that to help our audience learn from that as well. Can you talk about some of the mistakes that you observed and why you discounted people in that first round and then that second round?
Yeah, absolutely. We documented it all in this PowerPoint presentation that the kids did for us. I mean, one of the biggest ones was, these websites that are cookie cutter. Um, they, they basically go to these digital marketing firms that only work, let's say, with air conditioning repair
Mhm.
guys or paint. Okay, so basically do the same thing over and over and over. But if the process is broken, because it's built by web developers, not people like us.
Yep.
So it usually they're focused on the front end and the UX, but not the customer. But anyways, one of the things that I saw across the board was, click here to text us, right? To request a call, which to me I love. I'm like,
Mhm.
great, because if I called you and I'm on hold, doesn't make sense. So I'm going to fill this out, and well, in some cases they would even let you pick the time that they would call you back,
Mm.
right? And you're filling out a prompt. Here's what I need. Here's how many tons. I mean, I'm giving you my time, and you're telling me that you're going to call me within an hour, and then you don't call me, but I do get a text, and then I get an email follow up. So there's like this barrage of electronic communication, but no people. No people.
Yep.
And I even began to see retargeted ads over the course of the next few days because I wanted to show the kids how that works. So I'm saying, like, here they're spending money on doing everything with the branding and marketing, but they're not talking to me, right? And there were a few of them that ended up calling, but 3, 4, 5 days later. And I told him, I said, absolutely not. I mean, this is not how you work. Either you want to do business with people or you don't. So to me, the communication is the key, and it's different for different businesses. For example, I have a partnership where we do e-commerce and we sell products on Amazon. Almost all the transactions where there's an issue, those customers just want to chat with you on the website. That's very different.
Yeah.
And you could put the 800 number there. They don't want to call you. They just want to get it done right there and fix it. But for a service provider at the local level, what you need is people picking up the phone and having just a great conversation to build on what it is that you guys do and how you can help. So communication was the biggest mistake that those companies made.
Well, I love the story, and it's super instructive, right? Because you think about the pitch that the company that designed that site or built out that system for those companies, that what they were basically selling them was, hey, look, it's a totally hands-off process. You don't have to worry about following up with people because we'll just automate all of the follow-up, and then when you have time, you can follow up with them. But in reality, the promise that was made to you as the consumer was, fill out the information and we will have a specialist get in touch with you directly in an hour. And then they didn't fulfill the promise that they made. And so even though the company thinks that they have a great service on the front end in terms of, generating the leads for the service provider, well, they're actually doing them a disservice based on the way that you've described it.
Right. And then I'll go a step further. There were companies that even after this whole thing was over, we replaced our air conditioner, everything. I mean, this is like a month later, we're getting emails, automated emails asking us for a review. I didn't do business with you. So how can I even be in your funnel? You're asking me for a review. You actually, in some cases, there was one particular company that repeatedly asked us for reviews via text and email. They didn't even come out here, David. So how's that possible? So automation is not for every business, automation. I mean, if you're doing thousands of transactions every month, every year, great, go do it. But hey, if you have 500 customers a year, come on, man, you don't need all that automation. It's a nice to have as you scale, but it may actually be counterproductive.
No, I appreciate that. Alex, you've hit on something that I think for a lot of marketers is a cool selling point, right? Hey, I got this whole system. You don't have to lift a finger. We'll take care of everything for you. But again, as the consumer, you've observed the weak spot, which is, well, this thing isn't built out very well, right? It's communicating around things that are not appropriate to communicate around based on who I am, based on, the relationship that I have, or in your case, didn't end up having with the company. And these are the types of things that many marketers are out there trying to pass off as a great service. But it's great to be in your shoes as a professional marketer, observing what others are in. This isn't necessarily your space exactly, but others in the marketing world are trying to sell, because it's a great warning to a lot of businesses out there. Hey, this is not the way that you want to be representing yourself.
Correct. Absolutely. I mean, or in the case of social, you and I, everyone listening here knows how big social media is and how annoying it is for small businesses. You're trying to manage 6, 7 different channels where there's like 2 people engaging with you. I say I'm a big fan, and now this is a little bit more broad, in terms of marketing and lead gen, but I'm more of a fan of own media, control what's on your website, bring them to your website, do the email blasts, whether it's offers or newsletters. And those are like the 2 main channels digitally. Social is great. Do it. If you have money to run ads on there, it's going to be even more effective. But unless you're like an influencer or a lifestyle brand, spending time on social. And I'll tell you what, I have a law firm that we work with that was convinced by another agency to get on TikTok a couple of years ago, like right at the beginning of the pandemic. They said, we got to get on there. I mean, a year into it, and it was just flat. Now,
Yeah.
they had the engagement based on a bunch of, probably purchased accounts, right? Because the company has to show that, and we
Sure.
see so often that happening. But when it came to tracking and the analytics and trying to explain, this was the other agency, when they're trying to explain how you get from a bunch of views on a video on TikTok, right, to did we actually bring on any new cases? There was nothing there. So it's like, it feels good that I have all this content here. By the way, this law firm spent a lot of money on doing a bunch of videos. And look, it's nice to have, but that wasn't the channel they needed to be on to begin with. But who am I to tell them, right? All I can say is I think it's a waste of your money. I think take better care of your customers, because we were using not Ring Central. What is the name of the call
The
tracking?
tracking tool,
Yeah,
whatever.
it's one of the tracking tools. They're
Okay.
based out of Atlanta.
Okay.
And you're listening to these calls, because we do that. I know you do that too, David, with clients. And you're trying to really figure out, where are they making their mistakes? Where are they doing well? And you give them both types of feedback. And you're listening to these calls and you're saying, like, look, take that money that you were going to spend on TikTok,
Yeah.
and spend it here, because your intake people that's sitting at a call center in Kansas, they're not doing so well, right? Some of them are short with those people calling in about Social Security, disability, or whatever the services they're offering. And it's hard to convince people, get that conversation away from, you don't need more leads, you need better customer experience, right?
Yeah. We're going all over the place here, but what I'm hearing, a through line, is that getting the leads into the system to begin with isn't really the problem, right? But where we start, that's a point you brought up, right? Was TikTok an appropriate place for that particular business type? A law firm. Who were they trying to attract, and what was the service they were providing? And is that the logical place to start a conversation?
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens next after that, and what is the experience? And mapping all of that out is something that I think very few businesses really think about. They don't think about the quality of the experience, that whether it's a phone call or an interaction on a website or somebody waiting around to be contacted, as was the case in your situation.
Mm-hmm.
But rather they're thinking about, okay, I got X number of leads in the door this week, and I ended up with one new customer, client, or patient at the other end, but they neglect to look at all of the stuff in between. And
Yeah.
so the point that you're bringing up is there's a lot of missed opportunity in the in between.
There are. And I think, having as many people look at it as you can, whether it's customer service, whether it's the agency, the marketer, the strategist, in many cases, is good. Because if you go to, whether it's Google, Facebook, any of the other platforms, and you say, well, the leads are not working, they are typically going to tell you, well, if we optimize it this way, then it's going to work. And typically optimizing meaning spend more. So if you spend more, and if you, open that canvas to a bigger zip code, or more keywords, or more interest or behaviors, then you're going to get more people in the door. But everybody's always trying. Again, in the affiliate world is the same thing. You want volume, you spend more money. So to your point, David, getting more leads, more clicks, more impressions, more views, not the problem. Although there's a problem there. I shouldn't say that. The problem there is that you still can't get all of that if you don't have a budget. So that's the bad news that you and I know. If you're a small business doing $500,000 a year in revenue, and you have maybe 2-3 employees, and you want to grow, but you don't have the money to spend on advertising, and you're just starting out, you don't have a list. I mean, what do you do? Because I get that question a lot on my podcast too. People say, well, how do I generate leads for no money? And the bad news is there's really not a lot of ways. And then there's marketers that are going to convince you that the way you generate leads without any money is just creating a lot of content. Just create a lot of content, and people are going to download it. And when they download it, then they're going to say, here's my credit card. No, that doesn't happen either. And Google's also going to tell us that, right? Go do SEO, give us more content. Then we'll make sure you're on page one. And that doesn't happen always either. So the bad news is that, yes, if you don't have a budget, you're not going to play in those sandboxes, which is paid advertising. So that's the bad news.
I would push back a little on the point that you've made, only so far as to say you're right about the advice of you need more content is wrong in certain contexts. But if that content is created and managed properly and put in front of the right people and the time is invested in the necessary way, it can work. So you're not saying content is bad. You're saying the advice is bad because it doesn't have the context that it needs to have, right?
You're absolutely right. And I think the other question you have to ask, David, is for the people who are creating content, if I'm okay, so let's say I'm a law firm right now listening to the podcast here, and the company's saying to me, you guys got to create a bunch of content, all different types. The question I would ask is, give me the case studies for the content you created, how you measured it, and how that content actually generated leads. But show me the leads. And then I want you to show me the conversion on the leads. Because if all you can show me is that a blog post or a podcast or a video or a case study generated 10 clicks per month and no leads and certainly no cases, you don't have a good case for more content.
Yeah.
Now, if you can show all the way through that you measured the performance and you can tie cases and actually get in front of a customer and say, so what you're saying is you gave me your email, you downloaded my guide, and then we called you, and now you're a client. There's a good case to be made. But often I see the opposite. It's just create content.
Right. And I think the point that you're making here is the metrics that a lot of marketers are selling on are metrics that don't matter. But the metrics that a business ought to be buying on are metrics that are going to apply directly to their bottom line. So how much is that content going to get somebody to then take an action, which is going to lead to an appointment for, a potential client for that law firm, and how many of those appointments need to happen in order to close, sign a new client, and what types of clients are of most value to that law firm, and therefore that's going to dictate the type of content that needs to be created. Those are not the questions that most of the marketers are putting in front of these potential, clients of theirs.
I agree.
Okay, so there's clearly a lot behind the idea of lead generation that most lead gen folks don't talk about. I'm so happy that you are, and that you're sort of pulling back the curtain behind here's where so much of the challenges, the problems lie. I want to shift gears for a moment, because you've mentioned a couple of times some of the places that you've worked outside of your lead gen company, doing work on Amazon, working with affiliates, and then also the fact that you're homeschooling and teaching. And I want to talk a little bit about this other project that you have, which is all about entrepreneurship, that clearly you are a practitioner of in many different ways. And this is, I think, to a certain extent, a very timely and appropriate topic, because we see so many people, whether they've left the corporate world and decided to, start their own business and are looking for guidance or trying to figure out how to do this effectively, or somebody who's just recently gotten into the legal practice or the financial planning practice or something, but they're thinking about doing it in the old school traditional way. And the entrepreneurial approach, the entrepreneurial mindset of how do I build a business, and the perspective, that's something that you've lived and now also, I believe, teach.
That's correct, David. I mean, I've done that for 20 years. Right out of college, I took over a family business. I was there for about 3 years, and since then, I've been in 4 different industries. But I have different businesses still to this day that I started more than a decade ago. Now, the bulk of my time and effort goes towards Predict, because that is a business that I want to build to a level that I can exit one day and have enough intellectual property and all of that built strategically. But yeah, look, I mean, whether you're working somewhere full time, whether you're as you said, exiting and looking for a side hustle or a gig. Parents are busy. There's lots of stuff happening around the world, and who doesn't want more income, and who doesn't want to take the skills or the things they are passionate about, like maybe their hobbies, and do something to create more wealth for their family. I'm pretty sure you ask anybody that question, they're going to say, yeah, I'm up for it, but where do I start? I think it was 2021 was a record year, according to the SBA. Not I think, I know. I just don't remember the exact number, if it was 4 million, 5 million new businesses, but it was a record year of people starting businesses. But we also know the other stat, which is like only 10% of them are still in business after 5 years. So what happens to the rest of them? It's almost like failed marketing campaigns as well, right? We try to look backwards.
What's slipping through the cracks? Exactly.
Yeah, what's slipping through the cracks? So I found over the last 20 years that the ideas could be good, and even if I'm not 100% an expert in one area or another, the key for me has always been the people. Has always been getting people on my team who are committed, who can do things that I can't do. As you know, with Jacob on my podcast, I brought him in over a year ago. He's been phenomenal. Whether it's a web project, editing, outreach, whatever it is, he's ready to do it. Right. And so, but it took me, I think we got like over 100 applications, interviewed like a dozen people, and then brought him in. So I've also learned in that time, for those who want to scale their business or are coming into entrepreneurship, the advice that I give is like, get that process right of hiring people, because that took me a very long time to get it right. It used to be a more of like just a gut feel. And then I made it like programmatic, like a system. I'm going to create a system. These are the steps I'm going to take. And I'm going to have different people who have experience doing perhaps a emotional intelligence assessment, or a DISC assessment, or situational skills challenge, things like that, where I may not think of it. I may just look at their LinkedIn, have a great conversation, and go, oh my God, I like this guy. Not the best way to hire. And I did that for a long time, not in a way that always yielded the same great results. So that's what I found. I'll tell that to anyone. If you're starting out and you're a solo, or if you're trying to scale, which I see this very often, businesses that want to scale, but they have a high turnover rate, that becomes it's a difficult problem. Now, wouldn't you agree? Because you're on the other side too with consulting. And I find that when they don't have great people, it's very hard to scale. No amount of leads or good customer experience will get them to the 100 million mark, if that's where everybody's wanting to go, right?
Well, I would say that we see this quite frequently. In fact, we've had 2 companies that we consulted with, where I can remember staff changes as a result of the work that we did. One of which was, a salesperson who was very active for, this was a home improvement, like a siding company, I think. And as soon as we started walking them through the process of thinking more broadly and more strategically around their, business growth opportunities and revenue generation opportunities, the salesperson said, you know what? I'm out. This is not for me.
Yeah.
And what do you think the business owners did? They didn't get concerned or nervous or, oh no, what are we going to do? We don't have somebody out there selling. They were relieved and thrilled that they now had the opportunity to do basically what you've just described, which is find the right fit for the new version of their company.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is the key, David. It is the key, because I can go back to the last 20 years when I didn't have a core team, especially in management, of people that I could trust. And you go on vacation and you come back and there's too many fires to put out, right?
Yeah.
And then today, thankfully, I've had a very hard year this year. We've had many losses in our family, and just life. Everybody's got life going on. And if you're running a business and you have that going on, where you have to take off for a week, 2-3 weeks, you have to have people that are there to take care of your clients. And because my clients don't want to hear. It's not that they're not compassionate, but the client doesn't want to hear like, I'm paying my invoices and now you've got a sad story to tell me, and that's why you can't deliver on time, Alex.
Yeah.
They don't. So, but I know that I have people that are in place to take care of it and be there. The only thing is that, when you work with a smaller organization like ours, we're about 10 people, growth is sort of, it's designed in a way where we don't want that explosive growth. We've already experienced that in the past when I had 40 plus employees and I was on the way to growing to the moon. And then I had to take a step back and go family first. And then I made those changes, David, to put family first. We wanted to homeschool our kids and travel and all of that. That meant that the business model had to be a little bit different. It had to be virtual, number one, right? And I had to have a way to manage employees in a way, and also clients coming in a way that could still grow consistently, but not that explosive growth where you have 5-10 salespeople out in the market, And so that I would tell people too, because by the way, David, that was a dream of mine in earlier businesses. I'm like, I'm going to grow to 100, 200 employees, $100 million. And then you find yourself working 80, 90, 100-hour work weeks. I'm sure a lot of people who are listening to this podcast aren't, strangers to that. So it's not unique. But if that's what that's what brings you joy, then do that. But for me, every time I did that and put family in the back burner, even for a few months, it didn't bring me to joy, even when you were able to grow it like that, right? And so I like having a small team, and I've made peace with growing that way, slow and steady. You make less mistakes and you have more time to enjoy life.
Well, it sounds like you've been, after, sort of learning from mistakes, potentially very intentional about the types of things that you want to get out of business and how you allow your businesses to be vehicles for getting you, or helping you reach the goals that you've set personally, which is a great position for you to be in, to know what you want and then be able to set up the business to help you get there. And if there's anything that I can say I truly appreciate about entrepreneurial owners of marketing businesses, marketing agencies, marketing service providers, it's when they have a broader perspective beyond just the tactic that they happen to be a specialist in. And for regular listeners, that strategy over tactics is my mantra. And clearly, Alex, it's something that you have invested a lot of time both in building for your businesses, as well as, thinking about how can I apply this to the situations that I'm supporting in the businesses that you work with as well.
Yeah. And I learned, I think you said it, but I learned much of that the hard way by making those mistakes.
Yeah.
What the cool thing about mistakes, whether it's in a marketing campaign or the customer experience that you're delivering, or in a business, the success or failure, is that if you learn those mistakes, and you're probably then also going to learn what to do, like the right way to do it. And then you probably won't make that mistake again. So I think if you're a good student, you'll pay attention. You will, track your performance and go, okay, well, I won't do that again, and that happens a lot with, as with lead gen and marketing and customer experience. I've been wrong a million times on every campaign that I've ever built, where my team might be telling me we should do this way. And I'm like, I don't think so. I think we should do it that way. But then I'll say, okay, fine, we'll do it your way. And then they get it right. And I'm like, well, see, it's just, you never know. And especially these days, as David, I mean, consumer behavior is all over the place.
Yeah.
It's all over the place. There's no one size fits all,
Well, that is a topic for another episode. Maybe we have to have you back and we can talk about how do you sell to different generations and the differences in consumer behavior between Gen X, Gen Z, millennials, and boomers. Who knows? Anyway, I'd love to give our listeners the opportunity to learn a little bit more about you and the services you provide. And where can they find out more?
Yeah, sure. Just come to our company website, predict.io. And from there, there's a lot of great content, free, most of it free. We're not going to stick you in some crazy funnel and keep blasting with emails. You download a good list that you might that might help you. And from there, yeah, reach out and we'll have a good conversation.
Excellent. And just so that people are clear, it's spelled PREDIQ.io.
You
And
got it.
I love the fact that you've loaded up with the right kind of content to attract the right kind of folks and guide them to the next appropriate step as as is appropriate to them, and I guess to your lead nurturing process.
You got it.
Awesome. Alex Oliveira, thank you so much for joining me. Folks, if you enjoyed this conversation and know somebody else who could benefit from listening to it as well, please, by all means, share it. Until next time, I'm David Baer, and this has been More Perfect Marketing. Take care.